Sorry about that. It's a natural phenomenon that can change and deepen your ideas of the meaning of life. And its very existence proves that you have the power and the ability to grow. Even without trauma, we have the power to change. And as Dumbledore told Harry in the Goblet of Fire, it matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be. The term for this change, this is why I want to read this part, because this is what we focus on after we see the effects of trauma. The term for this change is neuroplasticity, the magical ability of the brain to change its structure and adapt to different experiences and events. There are two different ways that it can do that. The first is through structural plasticity, when experiences and memories change the brain's physical structure. And the second is through functional plasticity, when functions of the brain move from damaged to undamaged areas. So it's if a trauma damages one area and that puts your whole body and mind in peril, the brain tries to find an area that it can move to adjust. So it's not like that whole area is gone for you. It's just trying to find a way to kind of migrate over to another area so that it can become healthy again. Neuroplasticity has the power to help you learn new things, improve your strengths, keep your brain healthy, recover from injuries such as a bludgeon to the head, and address your weaknesses such as difficulties due to memory wiping spell obliviate. For example, you can change your brain by altering your beliefs, your systems of belief, or developing coping mechanisms and goals for different things you struggle with. You can't entirely change your brain. It has its limits. Our cognition declines as we age, unfortunately, but you can still do a lot to shape it over time. This can be done by eating healthy foods, getting lots of rest, and practicing different skills, including mindfulness and positive thought patterns, which is what we're going to be working on. Neuroplasticity allows us to stretch and mold ourselves in ways we may find we didn't think possible at the beginning. Imagine, if you can, that your personality is like a rubber ball that surrounds you. Without any kind of energy exerted on it, the ball remains small and closed around you, limiting your movement. You blindly hope that something will happen as you try to push against its walls, only to quickly find that they bounce right back. You may recognize this concept in your life in the form of your comfort zone. This is a dark and fundamental magic. And like fundamental magic, such as love, its power is not something to be underestimated. So just in case we miss that, comfort zones are not really that healthy. So that's what we're going to be practicing today. Its strength in its design, which is to do precisely one thing, keep you safe. But surely that's a good thing, you may ask? Food and shelter are essentials to safety and survival. Almost every other aspect of your life is not. And this is where the comfort zone tricks you. It feels familiar to you. When something is familiar, you feel safe. Change is scary for many. And the comfort zone will whisper in your ear like an old friend who knows you all too well, planting thoughts in your mind. I can't do this. It's too hard. I'm a fraud. This is too overwhelming. Ooh, I said that before. I'm too busy and I have no time. Whatever it is, it knows exactly how to convince you not to change. It will hide in the dark corners of your mind, patiently waiting for you to have a bad day, for a considerable obstacle to fall in front of your goals, and even for your motivation to subside just a little. At this point, the ball's elasticity will spring itself back to its original shape inside, and you're stuck. Despite this, if we apply small amounts of intentional and consistent pressure with strong foundation, we can start to stretch this ball, and with it, what is possible. No matter what we do, we all have the thoughts, but we must recognize what they truly are and know those shielding thoughts are not helping us. Instead, they are only there to sap our powers of change, hold us back, and prevent us from achieving our goals. Only you can turn around and stop letting the comfort zone control you. This one actually speaks to me really loudly, unfortunately. Only you can turn around and stop letting the comfort zone control you. These spells and lessons throughout this book will act as a guide to point you in the right direction. And with focus and dedication, you will slowly find yourself evolving. Focus on one spell at a time and start by practicing it for 3 minutes a day. Just 3 minutes is all you have to do it. This will be enough evidence to convince your brain that the comfort zone isn't protected after all. Rather, it is blocking you from achieving a greater you. All right, there's our Dev Mudra. Take one more deep breath in and exhale. And I'll put this information in writing for you guys next time, because I think it's easy to forget, just go through one ear and not the other, but it's really a great overview of trauma and neuroplasticity. Okay, so we're going to go get started on our activities so that I can go through our information today. So we're going to all the way back to this. It's probably near the end because I think Dave sent the plain one first. I forgot to ask him. Okay, so it's at the end of one of the packets, whichever one is at the end of the packet with the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on it. And if you go back to the back, all the fun things are here for you to work on. So remember we did those value charts, just in case you weren't here and you need a refresher. Here are some of the values, and so you're going to just choose 5. Oh, I really followed directions this time. Oh no, I got a little more extra. Pick from 5 to 8, whichever, and either highlight or star them, because that's what you're going to put in your wand that you're going to create. So we're going to do our basic needs. I'm going to just go over all the activity work for you to do so that while we're discussing, you can just keep going. This is our 5 basic needs. I think everybody that knows me, I have said this 1,000 times, so it's not going to be new to anyone. But choice theory tells us we have 5 basic needs. These needs, if not met, can cause us to feel something like something is not right. And it can affect our mental and our physical health. So we look at the tables below, and then they have this little grid for you. And if you read under each one of them, so survival is food, water, air, conservation, shelter, health, preparation, and security, which actually they've redone this theory and added a few more. On my original, these came out really clear. I need to check these more. I'm sorry, but I will get you the rest of the information for that. So there's love and belonging, freedom, power, and fun. So I usually say love and affection. They say love and belonging, freedom and power, fun, and survival is our basic need. So it's usually love and affection, freedom and control, no, freedom and independence, power and control, fun, and survival. I usually leave out their survival because if we're not in survival, we're not there to be talking anyway. So look at these down here and rate where you are at this. And if you work with me, yes, I will. Let me get my good copy out. I will check this next time. I had no idea that didn't come. We'll probably find lots of little fun things like that. Here we go. All right, here we go. So under love and belonging, it is friendship, cooperation, involvement, caring, relationships, connecting, and trust. I'll read them there again. Under 5 basic needs, love and belonging, the yellow part is friendship, cooperation, involvement, caring, relationships, connecting, and trust. Everybody get that? Alrighty. All right, so that's one thing for you to fill out. If you work with me, please bring this in so we can talk about it. If you're working with someone else, you might want to talk to them about it. But pretty much you're kind of in an off-balance state. I don't really know how to explain. You just feel like something's missing and there's a hole. And sometimes that's a spiritual situation. But a lot of times it's because our basic needs are not being met. And as much as we have in our society, we have a huge deficit sometimes in just what our basic needs are, because they're not really valued that much in society sometimes. Okay, so our second one is the mirror of Erised. And this one is the mirror where Harry looks in and sees his mom and dad, and Ron looks in the mirror and sees him as head boy and winning the Quidditch, and I think captain of the Quidditch team and head boy, and they win the House Cup. And it says, I show not your face, but your heart's desire. The mirror shows what you long for or what you truly desire. However, even more so than that, if you looked into the mirror, the happiest person would only see themselves, meaning they would be happy with themselves just the way they are. How many of us would do that? Can anybody say that they actually would? Have you gotten to that level of enlightenment yet?
I don't know if that's reality.
I don't think it is either. It's a nice dream.
I don't think, well, because it's like fulfillment is more than just personal fulfillment. If you
Right.
were just talking about the ego, then I could see that being true for some, right? And not the ego in a negative sense, but like
Right,
the
right.
personal, the healthy ego.
Healthy,
But if you're looking at like environmental situations,
yeah.
like
And
things always, there are going to be things that suck.
yep.
And like having a blind eye to things that don't fit in your space or
Yeah.
fit in your life.
Doesn't make them go
That
away,
is
does it?
right. That's
Yeah.
avoidance.
Yes, yes. Which sometimes it helps for a little while, but in the long run, you have to find it. So basically, let's just go with this theory. What would you see in the mirror of Erised? And if you didn't get that backwards, Erised is desire. Write about or draw a picture of what you would see when you look in the mirror. Why do you think this is what would appear? So that's your homework for the mirror one. And then we have the wheel of power and control, because we're looking at the 5 basic needs. Think about your life and the things that caused you stress this past week. So kind of bring it down to recently. What of these things could you control? Which of these things are you out of control? And then still under this theory of choice theory, which is Glasser, 5 basic needs and power and control. And then he also has the 7 connecting habits versus the 7 deadly habits. And that fits in really well with Harry Potter. So our caring habits are supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, negotiating differences. Our deadly habits are criticizing, blaming, complaining, nagging, threatening, punishing, bribing, or rewarding to control. So just think past the last week. And then if you get through with the last week, just think globally in your life, what's out of your control and what it is in your control. And if you've already done everything you can to control it, then the rest is out of your control. Put it in that one. Your brain wants to see it that way. Oh, I forgot to say this. Okay. All of these activities are really based on neuroplasticity and literally ways that can change the structure of your brain, and without you really having to work long and hard on it. So if they seem silly or they seem like trite, every one of them is meant to change a different part of your brain. So that's why there's a ton of them. We may not get it all done this time, but we're gonna get through them all, because that means I've targeted each part of the brain. Okay, so our charms homework: create your own charm, pick a phrase or sentence that you can say to yourself when you start to feel a loss of control. For me lately, it's patience. Like I am more of a patient person than I haven't been as patient lately. Nobody on the outside, I don't think, would see it, but on the inside, I feel it. So I'm working on that one. One of my favorite things, I don't know why I have no clue. I'll have to explore this later. Why in Ollivander's shop, when he's like having Harry try the wands, he hands him this one and no, apparently not. And then he hands him this one and it blows everything to pieces. And he goes, nope, no, definitely not. I love the way he says it. I love that sentence. And that's what I've been using for a while. If I get to the point where I'm about to, or if I'm worried about something or I'm too stressed about it, I've just been going, nope, no, definitely not. And it just feels good. And then it kind of puts me back into the movie and then I'm calm. So try and find one, as silly as it may be, try and find one for you that you can say, and it can, I did that at Christmas time with my family. It's like my big thing is you can spend 3 hours with someone and not really get into anything. Absolutely not. Good. Yep. Absolutely not. Nope. No, definitely not. Okay. Speaking of wands, now we're on to our wand homework. So you can draw, paint, color, label, or craft a wand using whichever materials and methods that make you happy. Create your wand. Your wand will be a reminder of your own unique ingredients needed to accept, let go, and change what you can. And the ideas to include in decorating and creating your wand are values, strengths, interests, hopes, dreams, and goals. Okay, so I did all of our homework. You would be so proud of me. Okay, so let's look. This is Dumbledore's wand. Okay, that's Dumbledore's wand. This is Hermione's wand. I like hers. She has like little leaves. I think they're leaves, but they look like hearts to me, so that's why I like it. And this is Lauren's wand. Do you remember this, Lauren? That is such an unusual one. I like that. Okay. I'm keeping it in a safe place for Lauren. All right, here we go. So here's my one. It's funky looking, and I'm going to do it again because I don't like the way it turned out, but I really kind of like it once I did it, so I'm going to redo it. So I have a rose at the top. I have another rose. I have a heart. I have an amethyst. I have an R for Ravenclaw because that's what I usually am when I take those tests. I have dog footprints, a moon and a star, and I have a lightning bolt. And it kind of looks like Harry's, but that's not what it's there for. It's a lightning bolt to me. And then I have a feather at the very end of it. So my roses are, because roses are the highest vibrational energy of anything on earth. And so it's really good to have pictures of roses or roses around you. And so that's the top, and I put an extra one in there. I have a heart in there to remember to choose love over fear. An amethyst because it represents wisdom, connection to intuition and higher power. I have dog prints because it reminds me to play and loyalty. And the moon and stars and the lightning bolts, that just, to me, those are just symbols that I've always loved and put in my art. So I put it on the wand, and I put a phoenix feather in there for renewal, although it's not the right color, but that's okay. And then a quartz for letting go. So the whole wand is made of quartz and everything else is embedded in it. So that's mine. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. And then your charm homework is with this one up here. So you create a key like all the keys in the really, oh, I want to see them. Ooh, a full collection of charms. I would just so love that. Okay, so, and mine ended up being nope, no, definitely not for taking, oh, and I put for taking things personally. I've been doing that a lot too. So I regressed over the holidays and I'm getting myself back in line again. So, and I made my even swishes a charm. Nope, no, definitely not. So that's mine. And this is my real one when, oh, sorry. Oh, I'm ready. Okay, so this is my one that you get when you're on the Pottermore site, and it's made of laurel wood with a phoenix feather core, and it's 10 inches and slightly springy flexibility. And Ravenclaw qualities are witty, wise, kind, creative, and intelligent. So I put that one in there because that one is the one that the website gave me. And then here's the theories based on the wands. Wands and magic. Wands, staffs, rods, and scepters have long been associated with power. They were originally bundles of slim twigs used for by priests to call spirits. In magic, wands are used to channel energy or spells. They can be made of different types of wood, which gives them different characteristics and can have other plants, feathers, precious stones, or metals bound to them to enhance their abilities. I didn't actually know that. So the cool thing is that if you study like in that book that I was telling you about, one of the things that she looked at was history into wands. And one of the biggest uses of them was to create a protective circle around you. So think about one that can create that bubble around you when things are not going well on the outside, so that you can still stay calm on the inside. Okay, anybody have questions about that? All your homework? Okay, so you have lots to work on while we're going. You have your wand to create. You have your charm to create. You have your mirror of Erised there. And you have, oh, you have your voice and control. And there are actually some journal questions here on the one that has the Marauder's Myth. Okay. All righty. So, and control. There's some other ones in here. Nope, we got them all. So those are all the homeworks. And then I will start going through a little bit of this information. Any questions before I get going? Okay. If you have them, please type them in or just jump in. It doesn't bother me a bit. I love to know that you're like here and doing this with me. So anytime. Okay, so we're not going to read the summary because you know that. I just wanted to, the themes of the book and the movie is the value of humility, the occasional necessity of rebellion, and the dangers of desire. When you read those three things, does one pop up more to you than another? Like the necessity of rebellion, that's to me. Like I have no problems with the humility, that's fine. And on desire, that doesn't bother me much, but like I try to follow the rules all the time, but sometimes the rules are just not very good. And I just sometimes have to take, yeah, okay, good. I just think that if sometimes you have to follow your heart on those kinds of things. So even though that's our theme, I still think that we have to use our own imagination sometimes. Okay, so we're going to, I think we're going to go to our handouts with the PTSD and come back and look at the themes in regarding to that. Okay. All right, so this is, okay. The Harry and the Sorcerer's Stone emphasizes the virtue of humility by showcasing the extraordinary modesty of its hero and by making modesty an important part of hero's success in attaining the Sorcerer's Stone. If he didn't stay humble, he wouldn't have been the one to be able to get the stone. So, and Quirrell and Voldemort could not. But Harry does not stop being humble when he gains fame, wealth, and popularity at Hogwarts. They did a really good job with that one, I think, in the movie and in the books. Harry's refusal to glorify himself is instrumental in getting the stone because he differs from wicked wizards like Quirrell, and that he desires only to find the stone for the common good, not to use it to acquire personal fame or fortune. If Harry were less humble, he would be unable to seize the stone. He is the extreme opposite of Voldemort, who strives only to achieve his own selfish goals. Okay, and then when we look at the occasional necessity of rebellion, I'm not going to read all of it, but I liked a few of these. He enters the third floor corridor, would definitely be something I would explore, I betcha. Restricted books section of the library, definitely I would go there. And he takes off on his broom to retrieve Neville's stolen toy, which is the Remembrall. And Harry approves of infractions of the rules of others as well. But I don't think any of them are mean or to break the rules just to break the rules. Harry's occasional rebellions against the rules are not vices or failings, rather they enhance his heroism because they show that he is able to think for himself and make his own judgments. when she eventually lies to a teacher, showing that she too transcends the rules, Hermione becomes Harry's and Ron's friend. One of the main lessons of the story is, while rules are good and necessary, sometimes it's necessary to question and even break them for the right reasons. Does anybody have any objections to that? I know Dave wouldn't. Okay, the dangers of desire. As the pivotal importance of the desire reflecting mirror of Erised reveals, learning what to want is an important part of one's development. Excessive desire is condemned from the story's beginning as the spoiled Dudley's outrageous demands for multiple television sets appear foolish and obnoxious. The same type of greed appears later in much more evil from the power-hungry desires of Voldemort, who pursues the Sorcerer's Stone promise of unlimited wealth and life. While Voldemort and Dudley are obviously different in other respects, they share an uncontrollable desire that repels Harry and makes him the enemy of both of them. Desire is not necessarily wrong or bad. As Dumbledore explains to Harry before the Mirror of Erised, Harry's desire to see his parents alive is touching and noble, but overblown desire is dangerous in that it can make people lose perspective on life, which is why Dumbledore advises Harry not to seek out the mirror again. Does he ever seek it out again in the book? No? Okay, I didn't think so. Okay. Dumbledore himself illustrates the power and grandeur of one who has renounced desires almost completely when he says that all he wants is a pair of warm socks. This restraint is the model for Harry's own development in the story. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone draws on a long tradition of English fantasy works that seem to be for children, but are in fact deep allegories of the human condition. Rowling herself has stated that her book is really about imagination and that practicing wizardry is only a metaphor for developing one's full potential. On one level, the story is a thriller with a criminal plot. The plan theft of the Sorcerer's Stone. This is thwarted by a group of brave students, just as C.S. Lewis' Narnia books, childhood favorites of Rowling's, are about children who explore a strange world and land and perform heroic deeds. On a deeper level, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, like the Narnia books, illustrates the challenges and adventures of growing up. Rowling's book outlines every child's ordeal of becoming an individual, winning respect from peers, learning about loyalty, discovering the difference between forgivable vices and unforgivable sins, and believing in something bigger than oneself. Harry's transformation from a forgotten orphan living under the stairs into publicly recognized individual, and then finally into a renowned hero, represents the successful entry into the public world wished for by every child. Harry's escape from misery to a new place where he has friends, respect, and a useful role in the world is a projection of every child's ideal life. Most important, Harry's discovery that there is something uniquely valuable inside him represents the dream of innumerable people, children and adults alike, who enjoy indulging their imaginations. So if it doesn't resonate with you when you say there's something uniquely invaluable inside of me, underline that and put a star by that, and we are going to work on that. If that's not an issue to you, if you really believe that you have value, then awesome. But if you don't, let's just mark that, and then we will work with that in the future. Harry makes friends and enemies in the form of bullies and shady professors. So he does have to confront people, not only the Dursleys and Malfoy, but Snape and lots of, he has a lot of people that aren't really enamored with him to start with. Okay, how to stop taking things personally. I'll let you read the most of it yourself, but this one, because that was one of his things, he really didn't seem to take anything personally. Like, if you watch him in the book, it's been a long time since I've reread the book, but it doesn't really say that I remember. Do you remember, Pat?
Not when he was a kid. When we get into what's the angry book 4, that's when, with the prince and everything, that's when he starts to,
yeah.
He hits puberty and all the things kind of fall to shit.
That darn puberty just wreaks havoc in everybody, doesn't it? So both, I think he does a good job, and as kids, I think we do better, you know, unless we're the target of bullies, and that can really send a different trajectory into your life. That's really serious issues when you're a child and you're having to deal with that, because it's just part of who you are as you grow up, and that just doesn't allow you to become all that you can be. So, and then some of us still have to work with that. So realize that other people's rudeness is not about you. If we could all just stop every time somebody is rude or a bully or ugly, and say, geez, I wonder what's up with them that they need to behave that way, because it certainly doesn't have anything to do with me. If we could just say that every single time, we would have a very strong neural network just to blow people off that are like that. And I know people that can do that. So I know it's possible. Okay, ask yourself, what else a comment or behavior might mean. For example, you might be having a bad day, or they've had something traumatic in their life. Take comments or criticisms in a constructive way. Ask yourself if there's any truth in it. Take a different perspective. Realize that you can't please everyone. Know that you're not defined by your mistakes or criticism, and realize that your self-worth depends on you. It does not depend on what others say about you. Oh, okay. So I had a conversation last night, and I don't think, yeah. And the girl is not making really good decisions with guys. Yes. And so she was dating these two guys, and horrible things were happening. And she says she just can't let go of them because they gave her confidence. And it's just, you know, and she has gained confidence, not from them at all. She's gained confidence, but a lot of times we project that onto somebody because we start to feeling better. And now we say we can't let go of that person because they're the ones that got us in this good place. The people that get you in this good place lie right inside of you. You're the one that does that. It might happen when you're with someone, but if they're not treating you well, then they're still not treating you well. So that's a big, we just want to make sure that if you're, you know, if you're an adult and that's an issue, or if you have children, that's an issue, all the way around. Okay, myths that make us, we're going to lead that for a bit. And we're going to start with our PTSD and our CPTSD. There is so much information about this. So I put in several people's opinions, and we'll take a look at this. And then if you have questions or some statements. Okay, cool. Okay, what is complex PTSD and CPTSD? So PTSD is a pretty much a one-time or a short period of time trauma that you experience with all 5 senses heightened, and you process it into your body, and it's stored in your central nervous system. So that's post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is bad enough. That's hard on its own. When there's an underlying trauma that's gone on for a long time, or it's repeated over and over again, or, you know, they give the, you know, an abuse situation. If you were in an abusive situation for a long period of time, that then could become a complex PTSD. And the way it manifests itself is a bit different. PTSD can change who you are in a shortened time, but you usually bounce back to where you were. CPTSD just kind of changes your whole brain structure, unfortunately. There's one that will show you exactly where it is at the end. Here we go. at the end of this packet that we're working on, how does trauma affect the brain? Does, you know it does, especially if you work in that field, but when you sit down and look at really what it does, you go, geez, this is not a very pleasant look here. The hippocampus shrinks. The hippocampus is the part of your brain responsible for memory and learning. So if you're an adult that has problems with memory and learning, or even an older young adult, if you had trauma that lasted for a period of time, or unresolved trauma, we could say that would be a complex trauma as well. And you might have problems with memory and learning. And even if you didn't, I guess you could blame it on that, huh? But it kind of gets worse. Here we go. The amygdala gets bigger. The amygdala is part of the brain responsible for processing fear and emotions. So we don't all have the same size amygdala. So if you are anxious, you have anxiety, you have panic attacks, every time one of those happen, you build your amygdala a little larger and larger. It really grows. And the bigger it is, the more anxiety you have and the less control you have over it. So we used to say, anxiety and panic attacks weren't any big deals. Now we know they are. Each time you have one, it grows your amygdala and it shrinks another part of your brain. So really nothing is worth that change in your brain. So for no other reason, we have to get a hold of that for everybody as quickly as possible, because it just turns your brain into something you don't want to deal with later. The decreased medial prefrontal function. The medial prefrontal cortex is responsible for attention, impulsivity, habit formation, and long-term memory. Now, this is also a definition of ADHD and ADD. So, but did trauma cause the ADD and ADHD? It's a possibility. Something to look into. Increased cortisol and norepinephrine in response to stressors. Both of these hormones are directly connected to the fight-flight response. So when this happens in men and women, especially in women, the cortisol is released. You're supposed to go fight a bear or a tiger or stay safe in war. We don't have that anymore. So he goes, oh, okay, where do I put this? And it goes right to your stomach. So it's literally called, and when you study it in relationship to psychology, a cortisol belly. So it just goes there and gets stored there. Isn't that lovely? That's another reason to get a good handle on the anxiety. Trauma literally changes the structure and function of your brain. It's not all in your head. It's not something to just get over. But don't forget, the brain is plastic and changeable all throughout your life. Just as trauma changes the brain, so does healing. So see, there's a silver lining all the way through. Okay, you can look at these definitions. Both conditions can make you feel intensely afraid and unsafe, even though the danger has passed. So I thought this was interesting. So I kind of wanted to talk about this. So watching Harry in his development, I kind of want to just look at what might have happened where he was going. Okay, so if you'll look a little further down in the packet, you don't even have to switch to there if you don't want to. It's Erickson's psychosocial stages. And if we're thinking about Harry, so these pages, I'm kind of just using this grid to give you an example of this. So let's say the first year of Harry's life, he has that traumatic event, which he did. So in the first year, the crisis is trust versus mistrust. And everybody's big goal at that age is to develop trust. Okay. The favorable outcome is faith in the environment and future events. And the unfavorable outcome is suspicion, fear of future events, and complete distrust. So if you look at just the movie, the book is different because there's more to it. If you look at just the movie, do you see signs of that in Harry Potter by the time he gets to Hogwarts? I don't. Well, yes, he is. He doesn't trust Snape. I'm not sure that would be, he doesn't not trust many other people though. He seems like he got out pretty unscathed, I think. But I think that they could have, if they were really showing the effects of trauma, it would look pretty different. Second year, autonomy versus doubt, a sense of self-control and adequacy, and the unfavorable outcome is feelings of shame and self-doubt. So if you experience trauma in the second year of your life and you didn't work through that, feelings of shame and self-doubt are part of the biology of who you are. So sometimes people will say, I don't know why I feel so bad about that. I don't know why I feel so bad about that. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I don't know why, and there's no reason to feel that way, but that person actually did have trauma then. So if you don't know where some of your behaviors come from, that's why it's good to look, because sometimes we beat ourselves up for our automatic thoughts or our automatic actions, and there's reasons for it. That being said, just like I said all the time, no matter what happened to you earlier in life, there's no reason for you to treat people badly now. So if you're with someone who have had these traumas, it's still not okay for people to treat you badly. It's more understandable to understand their past, but it's just still not okay. Okay, 3rd through 5th years, initiative versus guilt, the ability to be a self-starter, to initiate one's own activities, and then unfavorable outcome, a sense of guilt and inadequacy to be on one's own. So then you get really clingy, people that can't do things on their own. 6th year to puberty, industry versus inferiority, ability to learn how things work, to understand and organize. Oh, that must be when it happened to me. Unfavorable outcome, a sense of inferiority at understanding and organizing. Okay, so whether you have just gone through those years, or you have children, or you're married to someone, or you're dating someone, or your parents behave a certain way, it's kind of interesting to look back and see where some of that came from, because you'll see in, I'll just say it because it's, oh, here we go. Unlike PTSD, which can develop regardless of what age you are when the trauma occurred, CPTSD is typically the result of childhood trauma. So when it comes to CPTSD, the harmful effects of oppression and racism can add layers to complex trauma experienced by individuals. Thus is further compounded if the justice system is involved. So not only can you develop that because of things that have happened in your family, you can also develop that in regards to the way you have to navigate society. So it's just, when it says complex, it's negative. Pretty much, I'm not sure that we find a positive, other than you survived and you're stronger. That's a good one. Okay, adolescence. Here's the tricky place we all go through. Adolescence, identity versus confusion. So if you see a young adult, or if you are a young adult, or not even young adult, if you feel like you don't know who you are, or you feel like you just like swirl around in this confusion, and you don't know what you want to do, and you don't know what your purpose is, and you don't know, which direction to go, and you start something and you don't like that, and you stop it and you start another thing and that doesn't work, that something could have happened during this time, because that's your time when you integrate the parts of yourself together and to become one. And if that doesn't happen, then you kind of have all these parts floating around, and one part will deal with this and one part will deal with this, and it's very hard for that kind of person to settle on something. So favorable outcome is seeing oneself as unique and integrated person, and unfavorable is confusion over who and what one really is and what you want to do. Does that make sense? And I think so much happens at this time. Like, this is a big one. So, and it doesn't have to be the biggest trauma in the whole world. It could be parents' divorce, or it could be bullied at school, or it could be your house was hit by a tornado, or it could be you failed a test. To me, that would be it. I failed a test, life is over as I know it. Here we go. So it can be a small thing that happens that like just sends your world in different directions. In adulthood, early adulthood is intimacy versus isolation, and the favorable outcome is ability to make commitments to others and to love, and the unfavorable outcome is inability to form affectionate relationships. Do you see? Let's go back to 6th year to let's just look at Harry in this situation. 6th year to puberty. So let's just say that's pretty much, isn't he about 5 or what did they go, 10? When do they start at Hogwarts? I don't
11.
11. Okay.
11.
11.
You get to yeah.
Okay, 11. Okay. So they're starting at 11. So that would be 6th year to puberty for him, and then starting into adolescence. So his thing was industry versus inferiority. I would say he feels inferior when he's around the Dursleys, and he
Does
doesn't.
he?
I
I think he feels left out.
he feels
I
like
don't know if he felt inferior. I always was shocked that that was not a theme that
yeah.
J.K. Rowling wrote for him.
Yeah, she kind of missed the boat on that one. If
He didn't have an inferiority complex. He had
No.
a Jesus complex.
Yeah,
He had a savior complex
he has a savior complex. However, that can come from
because he wasn't ever saved.
right. Exactly. When you want to save everybody, nobody saved you. Usually, that's a big one, and one I fight my whole life through. Okay, so there's our adolescence, and then early adulthood. Intimacy versus isolation. The middle age is, oh, I wanted to do one more thing. Early adulthood, inability to form affectionate relationships. This is where you see avoidance in relationships. So if you're with or see someone that seems to not be able to make a really good, close emotional connection, this is what happens in that stage. Middle age is generative versus self-absorption, concern for family and society in general, concern only for self, one's own well-being and prosperity. So favorable, we want that everyone to do well, we want our family to do well, we want the world to do well. Unfavorable outcome is under no circumstances will we not put ourselves first, and our goal is to be number one and rich. In the aging years, integrity versus despair, a sense of integrity and fulfillment and willingness to face death is a favorable outcome. And the unfavorable outcome is dissatisfaction with life, despair over prospect of death. That's a biggie one. It's one that we all have to face sometime, and it doesn't come easily. Okay. All of this, let's see, we're going to look at the symptoms of CPSD here as we kind of cross-reference. In addition to all of the core symptoms of PTSD, which is usually caused by a single event, can result from trauma experienced at any age, and is usually milder than complex PTSD. CPSD is caused by long-term repeated trauma, typically arises from childhood experiences, often occurs in those who have endured racism and oppression, usually more severe than PTSD. And then if you drop down for the symptoms, in addition to all the core symptoms of PTSD, re-experiencing avoidance and hyperarousal, that's what you'll see and that's what you'll feel. CPTSD symptoms generally also include difficulty controlling emotions. It's common for someone suffering with CPTSD to lose control over their emotions, which can manifest as explosive anger, persistent sadness, depression, and suicidal thoughts, as well as negative self-view. CPTSD can cause a person to view themselves in a negative light. They may feel helpless, guilty, or ashamed. This is where our guilt and shame comes in when we don't. This is where our guilt and shame comes from when we don't even when we're adults and we don't know why we feel that, and your therapist goes, well, let's see what in exactly that you feel that for, and you can't think of it. This is a possibility of where it came from. Difficulty with relationships. Relationships may suffer due to difficulties trusting others and a negative self-view. A person with PTSD may avoid relationships or get in one and be avoidant. And that's an issue, or develop unhealthy relationships because that is what they knew in the past. So if you are like listening to my sessions all day long, you would hear this over and over and over. Like, you get into a bad relationship, you think that's what you deserve because you had the trauma from the past, and you stay in the bad relationship. And I'm so not saying everybody needs to leave everybody. I'm just saying, you know, look at what is good and what is right and what is, I'm not going to use the word fair, but in essence, you're treated well. And if that's not where we are, we need to not be there anymore. That's just, there's so many people in that situation, and it just spirals and creates, and then they have children, and then that happens to the children, and it's just all the way down the line. Okay. Detachment from the trauma. A person may disconnect from themselves, depersonalization. This happens so much more than you think. So let's think about for a second. Let's say you've worked at the same, you're a teacher and you worked at the same school for 15 years. You can get out, get in your car and drive to your school and have no idea how you got there. Like, did I cross that road? Did I turn here? Did I turn that? And that's a form of detachment and depersonalization. It's a form of that, which is very normal. But this is like, you kind of, my mom had a good way to explain this. She has Parkinson's, and part of Parkinson's is depersonalization. And so she early on, when she had a better grasp of being able to explain things, she would say, Tammy, I go out to lunch with my friends after Bible class, and I want to talk to them, and I have things I want to talk to them about, but I don't. And I think I'm like floating above them and looking at the conversation on the table. That's a more severe way of depersonalization, but that is part of it.
How is depersonalization relatable to disassociation? Is it similar, the same?
It's really similar. Depersonalization is on a more personal and immediate situation, like you and someone else, or you and your family, or the realization is kind of global. Like, you're kind of out of it for everything. Like, nothing feels like it's real. You feel like you're walking through a
like a dream state almost?
A bad dream state.
Okay.
Like a bad dream state. Like, you seem to can't pull yourself out of the fog and interact with people. And that's when most people, like other people, start to realize that. A lot of people don't realize depersonalization in you, but they can realize derealization in you. So that's the difference. And with Parkinson's, it's part of the brain. Interestingly, we look at how trauma affects the brain. This can happen in a short period of time, but it can preempt your brain to be ready for that later on in life. Hence, we get neurological diseases. So it's so important for us to take care of our bodies, but it's so important to take care of our minds just as much, if not more so, because most of our neurological diseases, even if we have the gene for it, if you keep your mind in a good place, you won't get it. That's the big, I think that's why I went down the whole rabbit hole of neuroplasticity and neuropsychology, because I don't want Parkinson's at all. So, and we have my sister and I have that gene. So we want to keep that turned off, and we want no trauma, right, Dave? No trauma from anything.
That's right, Tammy.
That's right. That's my thing. Nope. No, definitely not. That's it. Okay. So we're going to keep back and forth on our little, our chronic PTSD here. Our cause for CPSD is by severe repetitive abuse over a long period of time. The abuse often occurs at vulnerable times in a person's life, which is why I brought in the psychosocial stages from Erickson, so you know which one is which. So if you know that you experienced a trauma and you know how old you were, just look at that chart and ask yourself, have I reached this favorable outcome? Because if not, yeah, we need to work on that one. Okay. Right. Oh, Alex, that's a really good point. Okay. When we look at detachment is something that you are wanting. So it does really come, it's just too much for you and you want to detach. The realization, you're right, it is not unwillingness. That is it. Actually, neither one of those are willing. Those are things that happen because your brain fears something's going to happen and it shuts itself down. And that's what comes from it. So yeah, most of us don't say, I want to be like a problem, or I want to be excluded from everything in life. It's your brain just thinks it's too much and it has to calm itself down. And that's,
yeah. And I'll clarify, I wrote unwillingness, and sometimes it's really conscious and sometimes it's very unconscious. So like you can be disassociating in a conversation. Just it could be like this very subtle difference. You can be in a conversation with people talking about a topic and it being, is your full self there, or are you you know how you describe floating above a conversation? Well, you can float above a conversation just by going to ideas and logic rather than personal experience. And if there's strong emotions associated with it, you might just naturally gravitate toward those higher level things. And that's a subconscious unwillingness.
right. Does anybody ever just anybody have experience with that? We all, what's the difference?
Oh yeah.
Avoid. Oh, that's a good question. Okay. It's really hard to say that one is a choice and one is the other. There's so much that works in your brain that, so, okay, let's go back to even when we just first started all of our studies with cinema therapy. 90 to 95% of what you do, think, and say is unconsciously driven. I hope that that's a mistake. I hope we have a little bit more control over things, but the more that comes out, the more research comes out in neuropsychology, the more we know, there's no way we have control over like more than 20%. So the rest of that is unconsciously driven. So often we're aware of what we're doing, but after we start doing it. So it's usually our brain that kicks it in, our unconscious that starts us to detach or to avoid. It's also a defense mechanism when you don't want to deal with a situation. That's by choice. Because you've experienced it, you can kind of like zone out of it. And so you just go, yeah, I'm not going to deal with this. That's chosen. Does that help?
Sometimes that's not chosen, right? Like sometimes your brain is as a trauma response.
As a trauma response, you detach and you avoid and yes, absolutely. If you are in a relationship and one person chooses that as a behavior all the time, then it's a choice. But if they know what they're doing. And that happens a lot of times because a lot of people just can't handle conflict and they shut down. Oh, okay. So your avoidance is more for future. situations. Avoidance can be present time, or it can be future, or it can be past.
Now that is interesting though, to think of it that way, because it's like if you're in a moment, a current situation,
Mhm.
and you just sort of detach, versus a disassociation could be nope, I can't face that right now.
That's what
So
it
I'm
is.
going to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a
Interesting.
mean thing. It's really not. I'm not saying anybody is doing anything viciously. I'm just saying your brain knows how to keep you from dealing with situations that you don't want to deal with. And so it puts up these alternatives for you. And sometimes you can catch it and sometimes you can't. So that's why we do all these cutesy little tricks, because we can bring it back to conscious state if we do those. Otherwise, that unconscious brain just runs all away from itself.
And so far as me tagging on there, it's a potential situation when dealing with the past, the potential of stirring up ugly feelings again is what you're trying to.
Yeah.
Detachment, if you find yourself feeling ugly feelings in the present moment and choosing to disassociate and disattach, that for me is where it comes in.
That would be healthy if you're going to say something that you shouldn't be saying. And I don't think that's a bad way to handle something. If you know that you're like right at the brink of like saying something that you can't unsay or doing something you can't undo, I would say, I think most things that the brain does have positive and negatives to them. Most of them. It's just, we just want a little bit more control over what's going on in the present situation. And that's why we look as deep as we look. We want to have a little bit more control because we don't want to hurt anybody. Nobody just goes, I want to be mean to my partner, or I want to cause my friend this issue. It's just that your brain tries to keep you safe. And if there's a trigger, that was one thing I was going to say. Trigger, that's an interesting one. I'm going to let you read the rest of that one. I just want to, we say triggers and we say change the narrative because it's part of our cultural language now, but those are serious things. When you get triggered, you aren't really in your right mind to handle the situation well. Then you choose to detach and you choose to, whether it's dissociate or whatever you need to do. So if it's a show, shows do that to me. Sometimes I am not in a place to handle what's about to, and I close my eyes and do it on purpose and open my eyes a few minutes later and have no idea what just happened. And
that's just a boundary.
Yes, it is. Yes. But
right?
yes, but I don't
taking space and like stepping away from a situation. I don't see that as disassociation.
But I have no clue what was being said in that time frame.
Oh, so you can
Yes.
do it on cue? Actually, I can too.
Yeah. I do it. I actually do it a lot, but I don't think I harm anybody for it. It's just that there's things that, there's so much you have to listen to, and there's so much good to put in your brain. And sometimes I just don't want to put what people are saying that's bad in my brain. I just don't want it there.
It's like being in a meeting and somebody says something sexist and you're like, no, I'm not dealing with that today.
Right. Exactly.
Or to follow your same analogy, if you do that with shows, if you're watching one of my triggers is if somebody's going to do harm to a child or a dog or something like that.
That's mine. Children and animals.
Like if you've seen John Wick, the first John Wick, and you've already heard about the movie, and you know what's coming, so you close your eyes. That's avoidance. But being able to say to yourself, it's a plot device that drives this movie, and being able to go with it because you've recognized it's a plot device. It's not actually happening. That's changing the narrative.
That is, you're right. And I'm not really able to do that. like, there's a lot of things I can do that I'm very grateful that I can do with my brain, but I can't do that. I can't watch it and say it's just a story and then still not be affected by it. It's no, nah. And
Well,
just
if you're really immersed, yeah, if you're really immersed in the, if you're really engrossed in the movie or the show, yeah,
yeah. And
really
see,
is
I
fun.
do, yeah.
Yeah, you have to make yourself pull back and realize that, you know, this might have been the 20th takes that they got right, you know.
Right, exactly. But two, but you have more of an analytical mind than I do. You know, I have an analytical mind because I study science and psychology, but most of mine is right brain. And when you have your right brain turned on most of the time, you have to find some ways to be a little bit more in control of the emotional part.
Yeah.
It's a one day I hope I will, but still Dave goes, shut your eyes, Tammy. That's exactly
I find that I can read almost anything because my imagination just like puts
Agree.
bars over the things that I don't want to see.
Uh-huh. I agree.
But I can't, there are far fewer things that I can watch.
So remember
But
that,
there are still things I can't read.
right. Remember everything we see is etched in your brain. It's etched in your brain. It's there. It's there for your unconscious to draw information from. So now I love scary movies. So it's not scary movies, or it's not like I only watch Disney movies. I am good with most of them, but you have to know what your triggers are. You have to know which ones are going to cause you problems later on. But just remember, what you see with your eyes is etched in your brain. You may never remember it consciously, but your brain does. That's the fun
I
part.
wanted to make a little connection to what was being asked earlier. Basically, like, is dissociation good? And one of the most helpful pieces of advice I've heard about that, as well as other other problems that people have, is that it served us for a time. Like, it exists. Our brain did this to protect us, and it served us for a time. And in some ways, like watching a movie, it can continue to protect us.
Right.
When we start having issues is if you have a really close relationship and someone's saying something that's hard, and then that's when you dissociate, and you've taken this moment of them being vulnerable with you, and you've gone somewhere else to protect yourself. That, like, maybe you need that. Maybe that's what you need in that moment, but this is also like you're missing someone in that moment, like they're being vulnerable to you. And so yeah, so I think that's like it helps me understand how there are times when dissociation is useful and good and other times when it's not, and to appreciate what my brain has done for me in the past,
Right.
to land me where I am now.
But if you are in a conversation and you feel that you need to dissociate, I think it would probably be better to tell the person you're not in the place to hear that, rather than to not hear anything they say, to me, because then the person thinks you heard them, and then later on when you go, we just talked about that. So I don't know. I think if you're not in a place to hear it, it's better for the other person to know you're not in a place and schedule a time than to, just to listen or not listen. And then, I don't know. Do you agree or not?
I do.
Absolutely, without question. I just wanted to recognize that some people may not be at a place where they can, like, it takes a lot of work to where you can even get to have that conversation. So it may not be, can we have that conversation a week?
Okay, gotcha.
It might be, can we have that conversation in a year?
Yeah.
Or even just to recognize that it's happening. Step one, right? Like, you're in a conversation and all of a sudden they've been speaking for 30 seconds and you have no idea what they just said.
No, that's dissociation. Is it planned or unplanned?
Well,
Both
these
sometimes.
days, I mean, it tends to be unplanned, but the awareness of it is at like 90% instead of like 10%.
And then do you say, oh, I missed the first 30 seconds of that conversation? Yep, me too. Okay. I do that with Dave.
I'll be like,
I'm just
I
not-
completely zoned. My sincerest apologies. And then I take a moment and use that time of, I like have my little prescriptive things that I know to say if it happens,
Yes.
so that while I say the script, I can think, am I prepared to listen to this right now? Or do we need to talk about this another time?
Yep. Perfect. Yes.
But it's hard.
It is so hard. And you work really hard and you think you've got it, and then you still have to keep working on it. It still comes. Okay, 10 signs of childhood emotional neglect. One of the things that I and my stepdaughter Kayla makes mention of this a lot. Neglect is as harmful as abuse, and it's a form of abuse. So these things may have happened, and it might not be this horrible, people hit you or abused you every day, but some of these might have happened. You have the tendency to bury your emotions. Remember, these are signs of childhood emotional neglect. You have the tendency to bury your emotions. You don't rely on others and are scared to ask for help. You often judge yourself harshly and struggle with self-compassion. You direct your anger, blame, and disappointment inwards. You feel guilt or shame about your needs. You struggle with low self-esteem. You are extra sensitive to rejection. You struggle with feeling deeply flawed or broken. You get easily overwhelmed or discouraged. You often feel numb or hollow. Any questions about that?
No questions, but ouch.
But what?
Ouch.
Yeah. Okay. Puppies. Okay. Look down below if you have yours. If you not, that's okay. 4 harsh truths that changed my life. This was very interesting. No one's coming to save you. Personal accountability is a path to freedom. Creating a different life means creating new habits. Not everyone will want the best for you, and that's okay.
Freaking hard, all of them.
They really are. Especially if I put it right underneath the 10 signs of emotional neglect on purpose. I did that because that's sad. Because a lot of us had that. But the reality is this.
Of course you did it on purpose.
On purpose, I did it on purpose. So here's one thing I wanted to tell you before I forget to tell you. So I asked for you to kind of keep your eye out to get a composition notebook, but we're not gonna have time to do that today because we'd be here till midnight. Oh my gosh, it's almost 9 already. So if you can get something like this, my goal, I have a really big goal for us. My goal is to try and address all of these different unconscious issues and have them all here for you in a little book. And I have tabs and everything for you coming up, but we just couldn't do it today because there was so much. So if you can get one of those or a notebook, if you don't like those, if you want to get a notebook or something. So I'm trying to put the information, you can't see what I'm pointing to. I'm trying to put the information in little blocks of things so that you can cut them out and put them in there so that you can have a quick reference. And it may not be that you need them for you, but you might need them for your kids, or you might need them for your extended family. You might need them for kids that you teach. Your spouse, whatever it is, they'll be there for you and you can look it up. That's one of my regrets in life if I don't write things down because, geez, I never remember them afterwards. It just comes and goes. Okay, inner childhood wounds, as we are looking for the trauma in the past, and even if we didn't have trauma in the past, this happens. Inner child wounds, guilt wound, feels sorry or bad, doesn't like to ask for things, uses guilt to manipulate, is afraid to set boundaries, normally attracts people who make them feel guilty. That resonate with anyone? Abandonment wound, feels left out, is afraid of being abandoned, hates being alone, is codependent, threatens to leave, normally attracts emotionally unavailable people. What?
Stop being so loud.
Yes. Right? Trust wound, here I go, is afraid to be hurt, doesn't trust themselves, finds ways not to trust people, feels insecure and needs lots of external validation, doesn't feel safe, normally attracts people who don't feel safe. That one is not, there's another one that I put in there for you because I didn't agree completely with this one. So it's, I think it's in the other packet, but it rewords these in a different way. And I like the other the words of those a little better, but for the most part, I agree with most of it. Neglect wound, struggles to let go of things, has low self-worth, gets angry easily, struggles to say no, represses emotions, fears being vulnerable, normally attracts people who don't appreciate them or make them feel seen. Okay, and then we have positive things on the bottom. Your inner child feels loved every time you give yourself something your younger self desperately wanted and wasn't given. Painting is just another way of keeping a diary. I loved that one. Okay, so stop where we are for a second. Your inner child feels loved every time you give yourself something your younger self desperately wanted and wasn't given. Right where you are right now, write 2 or 3 things. That's why I love Disney so much. My younger self didn't get that because I love Disney all the time, every day. And I had dogs, but I'm not going to tell you what happened to my dogs with my father, so I'll leave that alone. That's why I have tons of dogs, like tons. Oh, they're all asleep right now. I had ice cream and I still want ice cream. Oh, I don't need to put that one. And acceptance is mine. Anybody want to share what theirs is? You don't have to, but I would love to hear. Okay, if you didn't do that, please go back and do that one because we want to add that in. Okay, here's our inner child ones. So it's coming on the next one. Okay, abandonment wound, feels left out, fears being left, hates being alone, codependent, threatens to leave, normally attracts emotionally unavailable people. Guilt wound, trust wound, neglect wound. And those are pretty much the same. Okay. All right, big one here. How to self-regulate using neuropsychology. We're going to do a lot more with this in the future, but this is a really good start with this one. Okay, so when you feel stressed, breathe using the physiological sigh. We've learned that before and we'll come back to that. But if you just do that deep breathing like we did with the dove mudra earlier, that is a good way. If you feel anxious, walk. That turns your amygdala off. I actually did not know that until that new research came out. I did not know that. I mean, I actually probably moved in anyway, because don't you pace when you're anxious anyway, so your body kind of knows what it needs to do. But put that down or sticky note or something. If you feel anxiety, walk. I actually walked before class tonight. Sad. Acknowledge your feelings and then move your body to release endorphins. It's move again. Impulsive, angry. Everybody with anger issues paying attention. Dilate your gaze. Look outside the window. That will keep the chemicals that cause you to get angry from flooding your brain. So meaning dilate your brain, it's like stare. So stare at something. It changes your brain structure. It changes what's being flooded into your brain.
So that's why that works.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, and then it's, I think it's going to happen in my lifetime. I think we're going to be able to figure out what is released in the brain, like what causes what to be released. We know in general, but those little specific things, we're finally, because we can see brain scans when people think now. So we're able to say, oh yeah, that does that and that doesn't do this. So that's a huge one. And again, a newer one for me. I do love finding new things that I didn't know. Okay, so to get the noradrenaline to not flood your brain, stare. Best to stare outside. If you can't stare outside, stare at something. Low self-worth and insecure, write down your strengths. This engages logical thinking, which overrides the limbic system. If you think, oh, low motivation, I skipped that one, sorry. Low motivation, focus on one spot on your screen for 1 minute to release the noradrenaline, and then the rest, okay, so then the cortisol won't be released, and then it's still going to increase your focus. When a lot of times when this happens, we don't have motivation. Somebody yells at us to get going and do it, or, you know, whoever in the family reminds us we need to be doing something. And then they say, you just don't seem to have any motivation for anything. So when that sentence is said, all the bad chemicals are dumped into your brain. And then it's kind of etched into your brain now that, yeah, I don't. And so try not to say that to people. And when you can, get them to focus on one spot on the screen, or one spot on, well, everybody watches screens. I would just do that. But it needs to be a not moving screen. You can't watch something that's moving. That doesn't do it. And then the low self-worth and insecure, write down your strengths. This engages logical thinking, which overrides the limbic system, which doesn't think logically at all. Any questions for that one? Okay, this is one of my favorite ones. And I caught this one that didn't come out good in the blue. Next time I'll catch them beforehand. The 5 pillars of identity: work and performance, material safety and money, social network and relationships, body and health, and values and a sense of purpose. Then this is another way to look at Glasser's basic needs. Can you tell? I think this is an important thing to know. Here we go. Love and belonging. Belonging, being loved, being respected, friendship, sharing, and cooperation. Power, recognition, success, importance, achievement, skills. Fun, enjoyment, laughter, learning, change. Survival, health, relaxation, sexual activity, food, and warmth. And freedom, you probably can't read, so I got those ready for you. Choices. Well, remember, best thing in the world to give anybody, whether it's your children or your partner or your parents or your friends, choices. Independence. Freedom to blank and freedom from blank. You need to have freedom to whatever, and you need to have freedom from whatever. That you fill in the blank. So actually hugs do like significantly better at healing past trauma than you can imagine, unless it's an abuse situation, an assault situation, and sometimes that does work. Science says humans need 12 hugs a day for growth. That's why I have my puppies. 8 hugs a day for maintenance, 4 hugs a day for survival. Do you get 4 hugs a day? Because you only can survive if you're getting 4 hugs a day. And then there's Hedwig sitting down there. Okay, let's see. We're at 9:05. Do you want me to finish this, or do you want me to kind of bottle it and get it out for whatever we didn't go over for next time?
How much is left, do you think?
I don't think that much. Let me see if how much is left. Hold on 1 second. You know, I think we got most of it. Yes. Oh, we did good. Okay. You'll have to read a lot on your own, but you know what? I know what I can do. Okay, we're gonna work with these habits ones before we sign off though, because you can start practicing with those. And then I want you to look at, can you please go through and read the hero's journey, the myth one. It's right. It was our next one too. The myth one is in your Sorcerer Stone packet, and it's about the hero's journey. And Dave had a very good question. I ask him questions whenever I'm walking on my treadmill and trying to figure things out. So the myths that make us, I'll bring this back to talk a little bit about it, but I think it would go better just with our next section that we're going to work on. But if you get a chance to read it, so Dave said, why is a hero's journey so important? I used to not think that it was that important. It was just a great literary device. It's the way our unconscious does everything. Our unconscious writes our stories for us, and it uses the hero's journey as a template. Does it stick to it exactly all the time? No, it doesn't. But 9/10 of the time, it really does. So if you know the hero's journey, so I was talking to someone last night, and I was thinking while I was listening to them, they're right at the point, they're at those trials and all the bad things are happening. They're right at that point where the good stuff is about to happen, and they just can't see it. And I'm hoping it's staying, that they'll stick it out to get there. But so it's basically our, I'm gonna show you this one. So, okay. So inside the 5 steps is an easy way to do it this way. And then there's some that are like 10 pages long to figure out. We don't need that, and our brain doesn't need to learn that one. We just need scene 1, choice to go. Scene 2, initiation. Scene 3, the task. You know what you're going to do. Scene 4, all hope is lost. Happens almost every time we do anything. Scene 5, hero returns with the ultimate boon. All of the like 20 steps are down to that one. The hero's journey is the ultimate guide to the universal structure of great stories, even our own life story. So think about some of them, your favorite myths or hero's journeys, and like stories that you love, like when you were growing up, or stories that you like to watch now. Your brain, your favorite ones, your brain tells your life story the way those are laid out. That can be good, or that cannot be good. Most of the time it's good. The knowledge of yourself can give you a clue to your personal narrative, your relationship narrative, and your social narrative. Whether you know it or not, you live the narrative in which you have chosen consciously or unconsciously. It becomes your own personal marauder's map. So if you think about your favorite fictional book or movie or story, think about if you consciously or unconsciously want or expect your life to follow this narrative, plot, or at least the ending. That's me in Hallmark movies at Christmas time. I think everything should turn out okay. And most of the time it does. And we're going to wait for this one to the next time, but we're going to go on our habits because we want to start right away. Okay. When you understand how neural pathways are created in the brain, you get a front row seat for truly comprehending how to let go of habits. Neural pathways are like superhighways of nerve cells that transmit messages. You travel over the superhighway many times, and the pathways become more and more solid. You may go to a specific food or cigarettes to comfort over and over, and that forms a brain pathway. The hopeful fact, however, is that the brain is always changing, and you can forge new pathways and create new habits. That's called the neuroplasticity of the brain. Okay, then she gives some more examples. Because of neuroplasticity, the brain's ever-changing potentials, anything is possible. People who've had strokes can retrain their brains to function again by building new pathways. Smokers and overeaters and many others can learn new behaviors and attitudes and can transform their lives. Whether you work with others on their habits or you work with your own self, you can apply these understandings to boost your success. Identify the habit you'd like to transform and set the intention. So let's do this together real quick so we make sure we all do this one and don't forget to go back to it. So identify the habit you want to transform and set the intention. I did that one with my charm. So mine was, I was going to stop taking things personally. And I'm going to work on that patience. Okay. Observe what the old habit or pathway is doing in your life. Look at feelings, thoughts, and how the body is responding to the habit and see results you're creating in your life. Be the witness and be aware. Okay. We talked about this earlier. Like we were saying, are you aware you're doing this? Or are you not aware? If you don't label what you don't want to be doing, you're going to keep doing it. You have to label what it is for your brain to know you want to change it. Otherwise, it's perfectly happy continuing the way it is because what is the word? Comfort zone. We're all happier in our comfort zone. Okay, 3, shift your focus. This is very important. To create a new neural pathway, you take focus off the old habit and that old habit eventually falls away. Don't pay attention to the donuts and the cakes. Take your awareness and focus it on good, wholesome, healthy, delicious foods. She put this out right in time for the January holidays, didn't she? Okay, so if we focus on the bad, we continue the bad and we strengthen the bad. We refocus on something that we want, even though we're not doing it yet, we're going to be doing it. Use your imagination. You can build new neural pathways not only with new behaviors, but through imagination. Just imagine the new behaviors over and over and over. Keep repeating that in your mind so that you build the new pathways. Focus your mind and retrain your brain. With athletes, if athletes are hurt when we do athletic training, if we have them close their eyes and they tell us every single step that they're going to do, for instance, with gymnastics or I don't know, cross country. If you do that, or even if you're hurt and you can't do your yoga exercises or your whatever you're working on, if you close your eyes and think of it all the way through, like really think about what you have on, think about what you're doing, just keep your mind on that whole procedure. Focus on it from beginning to end and see the positive result at the end. Your brain doesn't know the difference if you did it or didn't do it, which means it sends the message to your muscles to relax or to contract. You can actually get beneficial exercise from doing it in your brain. Anybody not believe me on that one? I always have somebody argue with me on that one. It's really true. It's actually true. I do that a lot. I love that one. That's why the hypnosis CD at nighttime, if you put on what you want to be, it's already working in your unconscious. And it's
Visualization techniques are wildly powerful.
It's crazy how much it is. You know, we used to think, I'll be very honest, earlier on, and now we're looking at 30 years ago, I had people do affirmations. I had people do visualizations. I didn't. I really didn't think they did them. That's honestly the truth. And I stayed stuck a long time too, because I was too stubborn to even think about those silly things. But those silly things make a huge difference. All the things that we did today, every one of them are creating different pathways in your brain. And that charm that you made, the one that your brain knows that everything you put on and in your wand is now in your unconscious. It knows that you've directed it there because of the way we did it. So do all the cool things because it makes a big difference. I need to make me a sleep one. I have the best one for that. Okay, I'm with you on that one. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I have to write that down so I don't forget because I have ADD. Okay. All right, here we go. You interrupt your thoughts and patterns when they arise. Okay, so this is the one I actually did for my charm. Interrupt your thoughts and patterns when they arise. Say no or cancel. When an old thought or impulse comes in, and say, I don't have to do that anymore. Then turn toward the new neural pathway you're building and keep on going in the right direction. So that's why I did Ollivander, because I don't love the word no at all, because
I love it.
you do.
I love it. No.
I want to learn to love it, but Dave loves it. I would like to learn to love it, but it's just not really good. So that's why my practice is no, nope, definitely not. So that's mine. So you guys think of yours. So everybody do your homework and think of some real good ones so that we can share them next time and we'll have more. That's what we need. We need a whole like little cheat book of them. All right, now this is aversion therapy. I haven't literally even, I skipped that one when I was reading it because, well, it's just not, it's too much to handle right now. And there's too much information you need to know to be able to use this one. So let's just not use this one now, cross it out for now. Okay, create a specific plan and choose what to do instead. When you get specific, it's easier to build new neural pathways. You make it official. Decide if you want to exercise instead of overeating, but she's so into this eating thing. Exercise instead of overeating. If you want to eat fruit instead of candy, just keep focused on the new choice. You may want to create affirmations and anchors to reinforce your choices. This can be I'm free or I'm in control. Reinforce this with energy therapies like EFT or other techniques. We will do this one long way next time, but think of something that you want to manifest or you want to create. Or so let's say, okay, I'm gonna think, let me see. Okay, so my word for this year, I didn't do resolutions this year. I did a word this year. I did resolutions last year and a word this year. I like for the past 35 years, I've done trust, believe, faith, appreciate, you name it. I've never done the thing that Dave's word is every year, play. That's my word this year, is play. Dave, you should choose one of those other ones, I think. Don't you think?
I already did.
I'm kidding you. I know you did. That's what he did. That was Dave's is positivity. And usually Dave doesn't choose one and he just does the play ones because that's his favorite thing. Okay.
It's spelled differently today. PAWS. Positive.
Ooh, that's a big one.
There, doggy daddy.
Yeah. Remember, if you remember always to stop a habit and to stop a neural pathway. If you do it or think it, take a big deep breath in, hold it, exhale, and then say no. And that's what will change. All right, that's your next one. Okay, so right now, pick the thing that you want to choose. If it's play, if you're wanting to concentrate on fruit, if you want to concentrate on exercise, whatever it is, get the word in your mind. Okay, all right, now close your eyes. Take a big deep breath in and exhale. Now form your sentence like I will exercise or my focus is fruit, but just get the sentence or the word in your mind because I'm not going to say that because it would ruin everybody else's. So take a big deep breath in and exhale. Put the picture of the word or the sentence or the object in your mind where you can see it with your eyes closed in your brain. Now take your right hand and touch your left shoulder. So it's crossed over your chest, your right hand on your left shoulder. You're going to take a big deep breath while you concentrate on that word, sentence, or object. Do so now and press down. Exhale. Lift your hand. We're going to do it again. Take a big deep breath in. Exhale. Get the sentence, word, or object in your brain. Press down on your left shoulder with your right hand. Picture. Breathe in. Exhale. Release. Roll your shoulders back. Now we're going to do the other side. Take a big deep breath in. Exhale. Word, object, or sentence. Press your left hand on your right shoulder. Press. Breathe. Picture. Exhale. Release. Breathe. Exhale. Picture. Press your left hand on your right shoulder. Breathe. Picture. Exhale. Release. Breathe. Hold. Exhale. Rarely does anyone trust people enough to teach them their own neuro-linguistic programming. You just did it. If you'll practice that, whatever you're trying to change or become, you will. That's a really amazing, amazing technique. Of course, it took me years to believe it, but it's true. Okay, so that's that one. Transform the obstacles. Look at what's in the way. Look at secondary gain, what you've been getting out of the old habits or pathways. Find, I'm just going to deviate from this one a bit. Find out what it's giving you, get it by doing something else. So, okay, let's see. Let's say I wanted to stop eating ice cream, which I don't, but if I wanted to stop eating it, I would say, what does it give me? It gives me comfort and nostalgia. Can I get that doing something else? I can. And maybe I will. Number 9, connect with your higher source for inspiration and support, if that is something for you. And then 10, transform and make the shift. Know that transformation is always possible and that you can create new brain pathways whenever you're ready to make the shift. When you keep your mind in the I can do it space, you get a clear sense that you're done with the old and on to a new one. Some people feel we're being rewired spiritually for a new era. I've had more people say that lately. There's great upheaval now in our world, and there's a process of transformation. However, that's been happening for a long time, years and years. Okay, when carving out a new habit, see, I have it in a little box for you. You can cut it out and put it in your book next time. When you decide to go down a new path that has no obvious tracks and hasn't been paved, you have to create the path from nothing. And it feels like you're going against a brick wall. It really does. At first, it is unmarked, uncomfortable, and hard to navigate because it's not been excavated properly and it's covered in thorns and bushes. And every time you reach the crossroad to go down the new path or take the old paved road, you'll be more inclined to take the easy route. But the less you travel on your new path, the less you travel on your new path choosing the easy route, the more it starts to fade away again. I think she reworded that one. But if you keep it, eventually it'll be easier to walk down the new path than the old one. So let's say you're going to choose the old path. Whatever your sentence is, nope, definitely not. Take the other path. It's still going to be easier to go down the old path. It's already dug deep. You can just roll right in there. But the more times you go down the new path, the stronger it gets, and pretty soon it'll be the favored way. Any questions? Okay. All righty. We'll just close with that because we're late. Anyway, Dave says the next group is Thursday, February 9th. Is that right? Okay. Oh, next month's movie is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Yes.
Number 2.
Okay, number 2. We're going to finish some of the things that we didn't do this time, and we're going to go into our next our next study as well. But if you bring some kind of folder or book or something that you can put all the stuff that we're going to do in, because your homework is going to go back and forth from this book. So we'll need some of the things that we did in this lesson to go into our future sessions. So just have something. You don't have to spend any money. If you need one, I'll get you one, but just bring something that you can store things in. Otherwise, we're going to like learn all this cool stuff and then we'll forget it. We don't want to do that. So any questions, comments?
Hey, Tammy, I have a quick question. What was the first cinematography movie that you did? Because I don't know which ones I've missed. Do you remember?
The first one wasn't the first one we did Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
And so
Okay.
the Wizard of Oz had like all my favorite things in it.
You did like a lot of sessions on Wizard of Oz. We did, I think it was like
7?
5 or 6. Yeah, it was like
7.
7 sessions for all Zen of Oz. It was
Yep.
really
No way.
delightful.
Yeah.
Are
And
they
it,
recorded?
no, of course not.
But
But
Not
I'm
the first ones.
I think we recorded some of
There's
them.
a few of them. There's a few of them, but I'm getting this. I'm getting all that out again, and I think what I can do is just do one session on the Wizard of Oz and try and get those. Just a reminder, because I want to be reminded of them too, because I did put all my favorite things in there,
I
and
missed that one. The only
They
one.
were very impactful.
it was
I'm
a
bleeding now. Go ahead.
it was a thin one, but I will get those. And the other thing I'm doing is making them those techniques will fit in with whatever movie we watch. So it'll be easier for us to practice them, because they're not ones that we should have just left. And then, I bet for the most part, we remembered one thing from it, and we probably put that in our new life. And so we probably want to have lots more of those. And every time so just remember, it's work to learn these things, but it will keep you from getting neurological diseases and cancer and digestive issues and all the things. So it's worth it. And we're trying to make it easy and more fun, but it's worth it just to keep going on it. Okay. If you want to stay, if you have questions, please stay. If not, thank you for coming. Have a fabulous week. And I will see you, if I don't see you before then, on February the 9th. All right, bye guys.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Dave.